The Warring States, the Spring and Autumn period, 500 years of chaotic warfare, a most cruel and harsh world that lasted for an exceedingly long time. Within that world, there may very well have existed a dragon known as the Era. Desire, pain, happiness, fear. The twisting dragon consumed everything, and from its dully glowing body leaked the substance that would rain onto the earth, blood. And with it, passion. Guys, I'm starting to think this Kingdom manga is pretty good. Yeah. Okay, I just want to jump into this review, so I'm going to make this quick. Today, I'm going to be reviewing the second arc of Kingdom. Obviously, this means spoilers, not just for the first arc, but everything up to chapter 73 of the manga. If you want to know more about Kingdom, then good news. I've already made a video detailing exactly why you should read it, and you can find that right here. Yeah. Something. Yeah, whatever. Now, before we get into this arc, please remember to subscribe to the channel as it really does help us out. Alright, let's get into it. Kingdom's second arc. Picking up 3 months after the events of the first arc, where Shin, Sei, Ten, and a dozen other allies fought to reclaim Sei's throne, we find our protagonists in a nice, peaceful, boring life. At least the Shin. See, he's been working regular jobs the past 3 months, slowly ticking the time away as he rests his injured arm and awaits a new battle. It's good news then that one random morning, Ten informs Shin of exactly what he was hoping for. War. Yeah, it's pretty weird for someone to be excited about that, but it's also that exact same mindset that'll help him one day become one of the greatest generals of the heavens. Marching with the rest of the soldiers, Shin comes across the Bai brothers, Hei and Tao, farmers from the village Shin served under. We find out Hyo had a huge funeral, respected by so many even after death, and Shin will only visit after he's truly fulfilled their dream. It's an insane claim, Hei even calls it out, but at the same time, Shin, have you grown taller? It's a great moment, letting the audience in on something we've known the entire time. The world is moving on, and Shin is getting stronger. Maybe, just maybe, he can become a great general of the heavens. After that, every foot soldier is tasked to form their own Go. Go, I'm not entirely certain how it's pronounced, but it's spelled like this, so I'm just gonna say Go. A Go is a system devised as a means of organizing troops. On the battlefield, a squad of 5 men would form a Go, and is led by their squad leader. Their numbers may be small, but the idea is that they use their synergy to keep all their weak spots covered. So, this entire sequence genuinely had me chuckling the entire time. It strangely reminded me of Hunter x Hunter, with all these giant dudes with battle scars and bulging muscles, and then you've just got this child who just wants to prove himself. It's even got that sleazebag quality where people will ditch you the moment it doesn't benefit them, and I just love it so much. But the one thing Hunter has that Kingdom doesn't is a mysterious assassin who's roughly the same age as our protagonist. Or does it? Cause there is this little guy that rocks up beside Shin, and let's just say there's some assassin-y vibes going on here. His name's Kai, and we'll get to him later. For now, the important thing is that Shin's Go squad is complete, composed of Shin, Hei, Tao, Kai, and Taku, a frail looking guy who somehow got a lot of experience as a squad leader. Honestly, this squad is so much fun. It was here where I figured out that our previous protagonists, Sei and Ten, wouldn't be featuring much in this arc, if at all. That's pretty ballsy, and to come ahead and establish all of these characters so that you care for them in so few chapters requires some really good writing. I love this strange one-sided rivalry between Shin and Kai. Shin trying to undermine Kai and claim that his weapon was most likely stolen because there's no way a commoner could have something as unique as that. But then you just look over Shin's shoulder and find an equally if not more impressive sword gifted to him by the literal king of Qin, and then for accusations to be flipped on him. It's a small moment, but it's a bunch of little moments exactly like this that make you inevitably fall in love with the entire crew. I feel like everyone really gets their time to shine before the inevitable battle begins, and it's really damn impressive. Honestly, whilst I did miss them, I never really felt that this arc was worse for not having our previous protagonists. But that being said, I am really happy that we got to see one returning character with Shin, Heki. Now a 1,000-man commander. He's just such a lovable, relatable guy, and I'm so happy he's in this arc. Now, before we move on any further, I think it's important that we actually talk about the war itself. So, let's do exactly that. The most important thing to know so that there isn't any confusion is that this battle is between Qin and Wei, two bordering states. Qin is the side we're following, with Shin and Heki and Sei, and Wei is attempting to invade Qin. The man in charge of the Wei army is General Go Kei, who just looks terrifying. Thankfully, Qin does have a force of their own, the Great General Du Qiu. Great General as in the Great General of the Heavens, Shin's dream. We'll get into them more in a bit, but it's just good for you to know that. One of my favorite things about all of this build-up has to be the sense of scale. We start with a large force, then Hara smartly boils down our focus into a group of 5, only for us to be introduced to an even greater force that we merge with. It's immersive as hell, and I honestly feel bad for Hara and his team having to draw every single soldier and horse and artillery, and on top of all of that, detailed backgrounds. It's an insane amount of work, but it took my breath away several times, so I'd say it's definitely worth it. Another thing I loved is actually the messiness of it all. There are a bunch of times we're told something will happen only for that to fall apart completely. Now that could be really annoying, but I think it really works here for 2 reasons. One, it just makes sense that information at this time would be inconsistent. But more importantly, Hara always makes sure that the thing we end up getting is more interesting, or at the very least as interesting as the thing that was promised. I loved reading all this build up. I loved spending time with Shin, Kai, the Bai brothers and Taku. I loved engrossing myself in all this unadulterated hype. But the funny thing is, this was barely scratching the surface. Now I won't be able to go over every single moment in this arc. It's literally impossible. There's so much going on and a lot of it concurrently. It reads beautifully, but to narrate it all would make for a really messy experience, and honestly, just read the manga. Instead, I'm just gonna go over some of the highlights in this arc that I feel really embody what makes Kingdom so great. So let's do exactly that. There are few things cooler than a war charge. Arguably, there's nothing cooler than a war charge. Yeah, there's nothing cooler than a war charge. I'm sorry, charging into a war will always be the coolest thing in stories, and Kingdom has some of the best I've ever seen. There are a few in this arc, but for now, let's talk about the first point of contact. Hara is really good at showing the horrors of war without obsessing over it too much. There are so many grotesque panels that I can't show here that are perfect for establishing just how terrifying war really is, and it's great at making us root for the underdogs in this war, our protagonists. But it's for this reason that not obsessing over it is a really good thing, because Shin isn't the type to find war so terrifying. Whilst Hei is throwing up over the sight of it all, Shin is enjoying the feeling of pretending to lead the army himself. It's the equivalent of riding a bus and pretending the seat in front of you is a steering wheel. It's just really fascinating to get a protagonist who isn't as bothered by what most people and other protagonists would be terrified of. To a young, naive kid with nothing to lose, nothing can really shake him, and I feel that's what draws me to Shin so much. I know he'll have to challenge this mindset one day, but at this current moment, it's the thing that's been pushing him forward and even kept him alive. It also has the added bonus of delivering some really sick action scenes. I mean, let's not beat around the bush here. Diving straight into hundreds of spikes only to come out victorious is just cool. It's epic as hell in its own right, but even cooler seeing everyone realize what we the readers already know. That Shin is incredible. And that actually brings me to something that I think is really important to mention. Hara does a really great job at making sure that Shin doesn't come off as another overpowered protagonist we get so much of nowadays. Don't get me wrong, he's still insanely powerful, but Hara always makes sure to balance it out so that the tension is still there. There are internal and external factors that are constantly played throughout this arc that keep the spirits high and let the action flow. Internal factors are simple for Shin. The guy simply isn't the smartest, and the external factors are the environments and the enemies he's up against. In this case, Shin is up against bigger numbers, smarter people, and worst of all, more advanced tech. If you thought humans charging at each other was cool and terrifying, then you're gonna want to prepare yourselves for war chariots. This is how you have a quote-unquote overpowered protagonist whilst keeping the stakes, because while Shin is the one who delivers the final blow to a chariot, it was Kai's intelligence and an entire group of men that made it all possible. War scenes are always difficult to show off because you either focus too much on the protagonist that the battle feels too small, or you spread your focus and the characters get left behind. Hara does a really great job at spending enough time on the war for it to keep its sense of scale, but also knows when to slow everything down for the important character beats. And that's exactly what happens when Shin, now mounted and having destroyed many chariots, gives a speech to boost morale. The soldiers, from 1,000 now to a mere 100, refer to him as Sir, unaware that this kid is the same status as them, and it all goes to show how incredible Shin truly is. So incredible in fact that Shin is allowed to stay mounted, something foot soldiers usually didn't get the luxury of, which is pretty good news for him because their next task is even more daunting than the chariots. When we're introduced to Bakukoshin, a 1,000-man commander, he comes off as an impatient, cruel, semi-villain of this arc. He even threatens to kill Heki and no one threatens Heki. Needless to say, I thought he'd be another hurdle for Shin to overcome, someone who would be actively detrimental to Qin's victory. The guy's literally known for his love of suicidal charges where his units always end up with the heaviest casualties. And that's exactly what Shin, his Go, and the other men comprising 100 are tasked to do. A suicidal charge through thousands of Wei's soldiers, and this series refuses to be anything but peak. Seriously, I have no idea how Haro writes battle scenes this long, and yet I never feel burnt out at any point. He does an excellent job varying the battles from a head-on charge to a battle against chariots to now another charge, but the goal shifts from simply killing their soldiers to targeting their general. You've got the main meat of it, which is the full charge itself. We see Shin and the raiders trample through while Hei, Tao, and the rest of the foot soldiers cut and run. Heki's quick thinking and tactical genius provides excellent support to wear down the enemy, and Kai's explosive techniques stop them in their tracks. This is straight up assassin footwork right here. I mean, like, come on, it's so sick. Needless to say, this is all great in itself, but it actually becomes so much better when the battles don't just exist for the sake of it. They actually help provide something even more important, which is questions and more answers. We see just how powerful Kai is. We're constantly on edge trying to figure out what the Wei general is up to, and most importantly here, we find out that Bakukoshin isn't some insane sadist, but rather a passionate, inspiring commander who's loyal to Qin, even if he shows it in strange ways, and in no other instance is that more obvious than in his final moments. After having made it to the general and Shin's horse having died, Bakukoshin gives this speech. It was your strength that drove it to keep advancing when on the verge of death, to summon a final burst of strength for the sake of its rider. That is what makes a good warhorse. If you were to ever become the master of such a horse, then you should send it off not with sadness, but with pride. The general spits on this, calling it a series of miracles. He claims that relying on luck and fortune led to the thousands of men having died meaningless deaths. But Bakukoshin bites back. They were not meaningless, because it was by crossing a bridge made up of their corpses that I was able to make it this far. And then, when the general pierces Bakukoshin with his blade, the commander keeps on. You call yourself a warrior? What a joke. To think you would actually go out of your way to stab me with your sword, when essentially, I am already a dead man that cannot even see. Well, Q Gen, do you think my strength right now is simply another miracle? If that is what you truly believe, then you will never be able to defeat Duke Hyo. Wei General Q Gen, I shall have your head. Man, what an incredible moment. Bakukoshin barely gets any page time at all, and yet his send-off is so legendary. Like, this is one of the coolest endings to a character I've ever seen, and he's barely a side. It's so good. I especially love it because both sides do make some valid points. Bakukoshin did put lives at risk for very little reward at times. But at the same time, to win a war like this, you have to make some messed up decisions. And that's something Shin will have to learn if he wants to be a great general of the heavens. And that point hits even harder in the next bit, when Duke Hyo and General Gokei are destined to meet. Another big player enters, General Ouki, Monstrous Bird of Qin. Not only does that title go hard, but General Ouki really lives up to it. He's so intimidating when he's just standing at the top of this hill, yet he seems really fun and has this juvenile humor to him. He really does remind me of Hisoka in that way, but especially when he's interacting with Shin. No, not the creepiness. Well, sorta, but what I really mean is the mentor-rivalry relationship that they both have. Unable to directly involve himself in this war, Ouki serves as a distraction to terrify the Wei army. Meanwhile, with all the commotion, he gives Shin a lesson on what it means to be a general. First, he shows it through fear. Something as simple as his mere presence has Shin shaking in his boots. And when Shin finds his strength to still confront him, Ouki puts him in his place once more by holding a weapon to his neck. It's only after that where Ouki explains the true meaning of being a general. I believe that there are two types of generals. The first is like Gokei, the strategical type, while the other fights battles with intuition of a wild beast, the instinctive type. Youngster Shin, will you make a bet with me? Will strategy win, or will instinct? After all, the subject of strategy against instinct is an eternal theme amongst generals. We've actually seen this throughout Kingdom. In the first arc, it was Sei's strategy that ultimately led to their victory. Bakukoshin vs General Q Gen was a tough battle that had instinct winning at the very end. Now with Yukio going up against General Gokei, anyone could be victorious, and Ouki makes that even clearer. Over the course of this long era of warfare, the size of armies has continuously increased year after year, all the way till now where we war with hundreds of thousands of men. However, as armies have grown larger, the talents of its generals have also become more and more crucial as to where one is victorious or is defeated. Ultimately, war belongs to its generals. Gokei cannot understand the Duke's war. However, at the same time, Duke Kyo cannot see through Gokei's intricate strategy. The battle has already progressed this far, but we still cannot tell whose version of war is correct. He then leaves Shin with one final brutal reminder he desperately needed to hear. Listen well, youngster Shin. Right now, everything that has happened up until now, and everything that is still happening, all of it was brought about by these two men for the sake of achieving victory. After all, that is what is known as a general. It's such a great scene because it gives us all the context we needed. It gives us the perspective of one of the greatest generals ever. It informs Shin of what kind of general he can become, and it tells Shin that if he goes down this road, he's gonna have to make some really awful decisions and live with it. It's an excellent setup for something far greater down the road. When Shin eventually achieves his dream, he's gonna need to be ready to sacrifice thousands to win this war. And honestly, I know this sounds brutal, but I can't wait to see how that plays out. This arc does end with Qin's victory as Duke strikes down General Gokei. Both fight honorably, and it's brutal and epic and the perfect closer to an incredible arc. The rush to get to this point, the ever-shifting tactics, and the thought-provoking discussions just had me in awe at pretty much every single chapter. This arc could have been so messy, but Hara always manages to steer it in the right direction. The action never got stale, the stakes were always wavering, and the hype was unreal. It's genuinely a perfect arc. I loved every single second of it. It's still a little too fresh for me to rank it or anything like that, but if Kingdom does continue this trend of just incredible quality, it very well could be in my top 5, maybe even higher, I don't know, but it's so damn good. These two arcs have been some of the best arcs I've seen in any story ever. So yeah, that's it. Yeah. I'm so happy. So that's the video. Thank you so much for watching, and if you liked it, please remember to subscribe as it really does help us out. I will be reviewing the next arc of Kingdom. It is supposedly shorter, so you know, that shouldn't take too long because god damn, it's been really damn long since the first arc. Sorry about that. But tell me, what do you think of Kingdom? Do you love this arc as much as me? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you hopefully much sooner. I won't take forever, I promise you. Bye, 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 bye.